Imagine a world where every nation developed its own unique culture and administrative structures, untouched by external influences. While this scenario seems nearly impossible, it's intriguing to consider how different the world might be if colonization had never occurred. Colonization has a complex history involving the spread of European powers into Africa, Asia, and the Americas. It brought both benefits and drawbacks, shaping the world we live in today. What were the positive impacts? Were there only positives? Join us in today's Culture Emissary episode as we explore the true impact of colonization and how it changed the world, how colonization shaped the world as you know it. Chapter 1. Early colonization efforts. Colonization began long before the European Age of Discovery. Ancient civilizations such as Greece, Rome, Egypt, and Phoenicia established colonies to expand their territories and influence. For instance, ancient Greece founded colonies around the Mediterranean and the Black Sea for economic gain and additional living space. Rome's vast empire included colonies in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, spreading Roman law, culture, and infrastructure. These early efforts laid the groundwork for the concept of a dominant power extending control over distant lands. The Age of Discovery, beginning in the 15th century, marked a significant expansion of European colonization efforts. Portuguese explorers, seeking new trade routes and wealth, conquered territories along the African coast and in Asia. In 1415, the Portuguese captured Ceuta in North Africa, initiating a period of aggressive expansion that would include parts of India, Brazil, and various islands in the Atlantic Ocean. Spain quickly followed suit. Christopher Columbus's 1492 voyage, aimed at finding a western route to Asia, instead led to the European discovery of the Americas. This initiated Spanish colonization in the Caribbean, Central and South America, resulting in the establishment of the Spanish Empire. The competition between Spain and Portugal spurred other European nations, such as England, France, and the Netherlands, to establish their own colonies across the world. Although colonies were initially established based on available opportunities, over time, colonization became more targeted. For example, the colonization of Sri Lanka was driven by its strategic location for transportation and the valuable plants that grew there. Colonizing countries targeted regions that would benefit them the most. This colonization created significant impacts for both parties involved. The colonized countries were influenced by their colonizers in areas such as education, culture, technology, and infrastructure, effects that are still visible today. Similarly, the colonizers were influenced by the food and other valuable aspects of the cultures they encountered. What were the impacts made? Chapter 2. Technological impacts. Colonization spurred technological advancements and the exchange of knowledge between the colonizers and the colonized. Europeans introduced new agricultural techniques, tools, and crops to the colonies, which in some cases improved local farming practices. For instance, the introduction of the plow and new crop varieties significantly increased agricultural productivity in colonized regions. Maritime technology also advanced during this period. Improved ship designs, navigation techniques, and mapping skills facilitated long-distance sea voyages, making global trade networks more efficient. The exchange of knowledge was not one-sided. Europeans also learned from indigenous technologies, such as the construction of canoes and the cultivation of new crops like maize and potatoes, which became staples in Europe. Chapter 3. Cultural exchanges. Cultural exchanges were a significant aspect of colonization. European languages, religions, and customs were introduced to the colonies, profoundly influencing local cultures. The spread of Christianity was particularly notable as missionaries established schools and churches, converting large numbers of indigenous people. However, cultural exchange was often forced and one-sided. Colonizers imposed their languages and cultural practices, frequently at the expense of local traditions. Indigenous languages and customs were suppressed, leading to the erosion of cultural identities. Despite this, a blending of cultures did occur in many regions, resulting in new, hybrid cultures that combined elements of both indigenous and European traditions. But sadly, colonization also left a dark legacy that continues to impact today's world. Chapter 4. Exploitation of indigenous peoples. Colonizers often regarded native populations as inferior and exploited them for labor, leaving a grim imprint on history. The Atlantic slave trade stands as a stark testament to this brutality, where millions of Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas to toil on plantations under inhumane conditions. These events continue to reverberate in the lives of Africans today, manifesting in ongoing struggles for normalcy and justice. In the Americas, Spanish and Portuguese colonizers used systems such as encomienda and repartimiento to force indigenous people into labor. These systems led to significant population declines due to overwork, malnutrition, and diseases brought by Europeans. In Asia and Africa, Europeans established plantations and mines, exploiting local labor and resources to fuel their economies back home. Chapter 5. Resource Depletion. Next, the colonization led to extensive resource depletion in the colonies. Europeans extracted valuable resources such as gold, silver, spices, and timber to enrich their own countries. The exploitation of these resources often disregarded the environmental and economic sustainability of the colonized regions. For instance, the Spanish exploitation of silver mines in Bolivia and Mexico resulted in severe environmental degradation, including deforestation, soil erosion, and water pollution. These ecological impacts have persisted over centuries, contributing to ongoing environmental struggles and affecting the livelihoods of local communities. Moreover, the unequal distribution of wealth resulting from resource exploitation has perpetuated economic disparities between former colonizers and colonized nations, hindering sustainable development and exacerbating social inequalities. Thus, the impact of resource depletion during colonization reverberates through time, shaping contemporary environmental and economic realities. Chapter 6. Social Inequality. Colonial powers often privileged certain ethnic or social groups over others, creating deep-seated divisions that persist today. In Rwanda, for instance, Belgian colonizers favored the Tutsi minority over the Hutu majority, exacerbating ethnic tensions that eventually led to the 1994 genocide. In India, British colonial rule reinforced social hierarchies and economic disparities. The introduction of the British legal and education systems favored the upper castes and created a class of English-speaking elites, contributing to ongoing social and economic inequalities. Chapter 7. Political and Economic Instability. As the same many post-colonial states have struggled with political and economic instability, colonial powers often left behind artificial borders that ignored ethnic, linguistic, and cultural divisions, leading to internal conflicts. In Africa, the arbitrary borders drawn by European colonizers have resulted in numerous border disputes and civil wars. Economically, former colonies often found themselves reliant on the export of raw materials, a legacy of their colonial economies. This reliance has made it difficult for many post-colonial states to develop diversified economies, leaving them vulnerable to global market fluctuations. Chapter 8. Global Shifts. The wealth extracted from the colonies fueled the Industrial Revolution in Europe, leading to the rise of European powers and the spread of Western influence around the world. This shift laid the groundwork for the modern global economy, with former colonial powers continuing to exert significant influence over global trade and politics. The decolonization movements of the 20th century marked a significant global shift as former colonies gained independence and sought to reclaim their identities and resources. This period also saw the rise of new superpowers, such as the United States and the Soviet Union, challenging the dominance of traditional European powers. While colonization undoubtedly had its share of benefits and drawbacks, its lasting imprint on the world cannot be overlooked. Understanding its history enables us to comprehend the origins of modern geopolitical dynamics and strive for a fairer future. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe to Culture Emissary for more insightful videos.